The streets of New York City were sweltering that muggy afternoon in April. A persistent drizzle turned the heat into a humid vapor that clung to the skin, causing people to quicken their pace in search of shelter. Amid the cars stuck in the chaotic traffic on 6th Avenue, a young figure moved with agility, carrying a basket of roses close to her chest. Audrey Miller was 23, dark brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and eyes that revealed a mixture of determination and exhaustion. She adjusted the colorful scarf protecting the flowers from the rain, while offering her products with a soft yet firm voice. "Fresh flowers, beautiful roses, sir. Wouldn't you like to get some for your wife?" Audrey was a familiar sight in that midtown area. Since she was 17 after leaving the orphanage where she grew up, she survived by selling flowers on the city's busiest corners. It wasn't an easy life, but it was the only one she knew. She had learned early to face looks of contempt, cruel comments, and the indifference of most people who hurried past, completely ignoring her presence. But Audrey didn't give up. Every rose sold meant food on the table, the rent paid for her tiny room at Mrs. Peterson's boarding house, and maybe, if she was lucky, a few dollars stashed away for emergencies. You're listening to a gripping true story. Please subscribe to the channel and comment with the city you're tuning in from. It truly helps our work. The rain suddenly intensified, turning the drizzle into a downpour. Audrey ran for cover, and her eyes landed on the elegant awning of a luxury jewelry store. The facade was imposing, with sparkling display cases exhibiting diamond necklaces and watches that cost more than she would ever earn in her entire life. She hesitated for a moment, observing the motionless security guards at the entrance, but the storm left her no choice. Carefully, so as not to soak the flowers, Audrey positioned herself under the awning, leaning discreetly against the side wall. From where she stood, she could see the store's luxurious activity through the large glass doors. Elegant women with designer bags, men in bespoke suits examining expensive rings, immaculately dressed saleswomen offering champagne. It was a world entirely different from hers, separated only by a few feet of wet sidewalk. She didn't notice when the two security guards approached. "Miss, you can't stand out here," said one of them, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a stern expression. Audrey looked up, startled. "Sorry, I'm just waiting for the rain to pass. I won't bother anyone." The second guard, shorter but equally intimidating, crossed his arms. "That's what everyone says. Then they start asking customers for money or causing a scene. Better move along." "I'm not asking anyone for anything," she protested, feeling the injustice burn in her chest. "I'm just selling flowers. Look, we don't want trouble, but you can't stay here. House policy." Audrey was about to reply when the first guard pointed to her basket. "Let me see what you have in there." "Just flowers," she said, but her voice came out shaky. Her heart started to pound when she realized they didn't intend to simply send her away. "We're going inside to talk to the manager," the tall guard decided, gripping her arm firmly. Before she could protest, Audrey found herself being escorted into the jewelry store. The contrast was immediate and overwhelming. From the humid street heat, she entered an air-conditioned environment, with soft lighting and classical music playing faintly. The floor was polished marble, so shiny it reflected the light from the crystal chandeliers. Well-dressed customers stopped looking at the jewelry and turned to stare at her. Audrey felt the weight of all those judging eyes. Her simple clothes, the flower basket, her worn sneakers, everything marked her as an intruder in that temple of luxury. "Please, it was just a misunderstanding," she tried to explain, but the guards were determinedly guiding her toward the back of the store. They passed display cases full of diamonds, past saleswomen who were whispering to each other, until they reached a dark wooden door with a gold plaque that read, "Management." One of the guards knocked and, without waiting for an answer, opened the door. "Mr. Harrison, we found this young woman lingering around the store. We thought it best for you to assess the situation." Walter Harrison was sitting behind a mahogany desk, reviewing papers. He was about 50, with perfectly combed graying hair, a tailored suit, and an expression of someone used to resolving problems quickly. When he looked up, his first reaction was irritation. "What is going on here? I have important things to deal with." "This young woman was stopped right in front of the store," the guard explained. "We suspected she might be planning something." Audrey felt the blood rush to her face. "I wasn't planning anything. I was just sheltering from the rain. I sell flowers, I'm not a criminal." Walter was about to dismiss the situation with an impatient gesture when his eyes fell on Audrey's right hand. She was still clutching the flower basket tightly, and on her ring finger a small gold band shone. It was a simple, delicate piece, but Walter recognized it instantly. He felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath him. The air seemed to leave his lungs. His vision blurred for a second. That ring, he knew that ring. It was impossible not to. He was the one who had bought it, more than 20 years ago, as a gift for his young daughter. "Let me see that," Walter said, his voice coming out rough and strange. He pointed to Audrey's hand. "See what?" she asked, confused, but followed his gaze to her ring. "This is mine." "I know, I just want to look," Walter insisted, standing up from his chair. His hand was trembling slightly as he reached it out. Audrey hesitated, but something in the man's expression made her comply. With unsure fingers, she removed the ring and placed it in Walter's open palm. He held the piece as if it were the most precious thing in the world. He turned it between his fingers, looking for something. When he found the tiny inscription on the inner band, his legs almost gave out. "To my little Gia, with love, Daddy." That was exactly what was engraved there, the minuscule letters he himself had chosen at the jeweler's so long ago. "Where did you get this?" Walter asked, his voice barely a whisper. Audrey stared at him, completely lost. "I've always had it. It's been mine since I can remember. It was the only thing I had with me when they left me at the orphanage." "The orphanage," Walter repeated, as if the words made no sense. "How old are you?" 23. "And when were you left at the orphanage?" Audrey frowned, trying to understand why this wealthy, powerful man cared about her story. "The records say I was about 4 or 5 years old. I don't remember anything before that. I just know I showed up at the St. Clair orphanage after being found by a family who called the police." Walter sat down heavily in his chair. His mind was working frantically, connecting dates, places, possibilities that seemed impossible. 23 years ago, he had lost everything he loved in one terrible night. His wife Joanna and his 5-year-old daughter Gia had disappeared after a car accident. The vehicle was found overturned on a secondary road outside the city. Joanna was there, but Gia was gone. The police searched for days, weeks, months. They never found her body. They never found clues as to what might have happened to her. Walter never got over that loss. He built a business empire as a way to escape the pain, but he always held the secret hope that his daughter might be alive somewhere. "You can go," he suddenly said to the guards, his voice odd. "Let her go." "But Mr. Harrison," one of them started. "I said let her go," Walter repeated firmly. "Now." The guards exchanged confused looks but obeyed, leaving the room. Audrey remained standing there, understanding nothing. "Can I have my ring back?" she asked timidly. Walter looked at the piece in his hand and then at her face. For the first time, he truly studied her features. The light brown eyes, the shape of her face, the curve of her nose. There was something familiar there, something he couldn't define but that resonated deeply in his heart. "Of course," he finally said, returning the ring with excessive care. "I apologize for the trouble. You are free to go." Audrey quickly took the ring and put it back on her finger. She turned to leave, anxious to escape that strange place and that even stranger situation. But as she reached the door, Walter's voice stopped her. "What did you say your name was?" "Audrey. Audrey Miller." Walter nodded slowly. "Audrey, it's a beautiful name. Thank you," she murmured, and then hurried out, passing through the store under the curious stares of customers and employees, until she finally reached the street. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle. Audrey walked quickly, hugging her basket of flowers, her heart still racing. She didn't understand what had just happened. Why did that man care so much about her ring? Why was he so shaken by the sight of it? As she walked away down the wet sidewalk, Walter remained in his office, his phone already in hand. He dialed a number he knew by heart, waiting impatiently as it rang. "I need you here immediately," he said when the call was answered. "It's urgent. It's about Gia." That same night, while Audrey was returning to her tiny room in the boarding house, trying to make sense of the strange encounter, Walter Harrison was at his mansion in the Upper East Side. The residence was imposing, with meticulously maintained gardens and architecture that blended classic with modern. But to Walter, that enormous house always felt too empty, full of rooms that echoed his solitude. He was in his private study, a room with wooden bookshelves filled with books and framed photographs. One of them in particular held a prominent place on his desk. It was Gia at 4 years old, smiling at the camera with her 2 front teeth missing, wearing the same ring he had seen on Audrey's hand that afternoon. Beside him, Frank Carter entered the room. Frank had been a private investigator for over 15 years and had helped Walter with various sensitive matters over the years. Tall, thin, with wire-rimmed glasses and an always serious expression, he was known for his discretion and efficiency. "Tell me everything," Frank said, sitting in the armchair across from the desk. Walter spent the next half hour recounting every detail of the encounter with Audrey. He talked about the ring, the coincidence of the dates, the inexplicable feeling he had when looking at the young woman. When he finished, he fell silent, waiting for Frank to tell him he was crazy, that he was seeing connections where none existed. But Frank merely nodded thoughtfully. "I'll start immediately," he said. "I need everything you can get. Orphanage records, ID documents, any information on how she ended up there." And Frank, Walter hesitated. "Be discreet. If she really is my daughter, I don't want to scare her." "Understood." In the following days, while Frank worked, Walter couldn't focus on anything else. He cancelled important meetings, left contracts waiting, ignored calls from partners. His mind was entirely focused on Audrey and the possibility he barely dared to admit to himself. Meanwhile, Audrey continued her routine. Every morning she woke up early, stopped at the flower market to choose the best products, and then headed to her usual selling spots. But something had changed in her. She couldn't stop thinking about the man at the jewelry store and the way he had looked at her ring. Mrs. Peterson, the owner of the boarding house where she lived, noticed her distraction. "Everything all right, dear?" "You look lost in thought." Audrey offered a weak smile. "Everything's fine, Mrs. Peterson. Just tired." The older woman, with her white hair tied in a bun and a floral apron always on, didn't look convinced. "You work too hard, girl. You should find a steady job with benefits, all that." "I've tried, you know. No one wants to hire someone without family, without references. It's easier this way." Mrs. Peterson sighed but didn't press. She knew Audrey's story, knew the difficulties the young woman faced. She had a maternal affection for her. She was the closest thing to family Audrey had. After 4 days, Frank returned to Walter's office with a thick envelope full of documents. "I found a lot," he said, spreading papers on the desk. Walter leaned forward anxiously. Audrey Miller was registered at St. Clair Orphanage in June of 2002. She was found by a family driving on a back road outside the city. She was disoriented with minor injuries, wearing only that ring. The car was found a few yards away, overturned. "The date," Walter whispered. "It's the same night." Frank nodded grimly. "Exactly. Your car accident was reported on the same night in the same region. Records show your wife was found, but no trace of your daughter. The girl taken to the orphanage was approximately 5 years old, the same age as Gia at the time." Walter felt tears well up. For 20 years he had imagined the worst. He had tortured himself with terrible possibilities. And now there was a chance that his daughter was alive, that she had survived and grown up without knowing who she really was. "There's more," Frank continued. "Audrey was never adopted. She grew up at the orphanage until she turned 17. After that, she got this room at the boarding house and started working selling flowers. She has no criminal record, no significant debts. From what I could gather, she's an honest person trying to survive." "And about the biological family?" Walter asked anxiously. "Any leads?" Frank shook his head. "No record of parents or relatives. The only thing connecting her to any family is that ring." Walter was silent for a long moment, processing everything. "So I need to be sure," he finally said. "I need to know if she really is my daughter." "You want a DNA test?" It wasn't a question. "Yes, but how will I convince her? She doesn't know me. She has no reason to trust me." Frank thought for a moment. "Be honest with her. Tell her about Gia, the accident, the ring. If she is your daughter, she deserves to know the truth too." Walter knew he was right, but the idea of confronting Audrey filled him with fear. What if she rejected the possibility? What if she thought he was trying to take advantage of her in some way? And what if, in the end, the test showed she wasn't Gia and he had to live with that disappointment? But he had to try. He needed to know. 2 days later, Walter sent his driver with a message for Audrey. She was selling flowers near Central Park when a man in a suit approached. "Miss Audrey Miller?" "Yes," she replied suspiciously. "My employer would like to speak with you about an important matter. He asked me to deliver this." The man held out a white envelope, Inside there was a card in elegant handwriting. "Audrey, I need to talk to you about the ring you wear. I know this must seem strange, but it's very important. Please grant me a chance to explain. Tomorrow 2 p.m. at the Plaza Hotel Cafe on 5th Avenue. Please come. Walter Harrison." Audrey read the note 3 times. Her first instinct was to ignore it. What kind of rich person thinks they can just summon someone like that? But the curiosity was too strong. That man knew something about her ring, about her past. What if he could give her answers about where she came from? "All right," she told the driver. "I'll be there." That night, Audrey barely slept. She kept turning the ring on her finger, as she always did when she was nervous. That little piece of gold was her only link to a past she couldn't remember. All those years at the orphanage, when other children were visited by relatives or eventually adopted, she had only that ring. The nuns at the orphanage had tried to take it from her a few times, saying she might lose it, or someone might steal it. But Audrey always refused. It was hers. It was the only thing that proved she had come from somewhere, that someone at some point cared enough to give her that gift. The next morning, she chose her best outfit. It wasn't much, just a pair of unripped jeans and a simple white blouse, but it was clean and neatly pressed. She tied her hair in a low ponytail and looked at herself in the small, cracked mirror in her room. "You can do this," she told her reflection. "It's just a conversation." The Plaza Hotel Cafe was an elegant establishment, but not as intimidating as the jewelry store. It had light wooden tables, plants hanging on the exposed brick walls, and a delicious smell of fresh coffee. Audrey arrived a few minutes before 2 p.m. and ordered a simple coffee, sitting at a table near the window. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the cup. Walter arrived punctually. He saw her through the window before entering and had to pause for a moment. There, with the afternoon light illuminating her face, the resemblance to Joanna was undeniable. The same light brown eyes, the same curve of the chin. How had he not noticed before? "Thank you for coming," he said as he sat down. Audrey nodded, studying his face. Up close, she could see the worry lines around his eyes, the grey strands in his hair. He looked tired, but also hopeful. "You said you wanted to talk about my ring." Walter took a breath. "Yes, but first I need to tell you a story." And then he told it. He talked about Joanna, the wife he loved more than anything. About Gia, the daughter who was the light of his life. About that terrible night in June 2002, when he received the call saying there had been an accident. About how they found the car, found Joanna, but Gia had disappeared. About the years of fruitless searching. The pain that never went away, the hope he couldn't completely abandon. "I gave that ring to my daughter on her 5th birthday," he said, his voice choked. "It has an inscription inside. To my little Gia, with love, Daddy." Audrey felt her heart race. With trembling hands, she took off the ring and examined the inside. She had seen those words hundreds of times over the years, but she had never fully understood what they meant. The inscription was worn by time, some letters almost erased. "Gia," she whispered. "Was that my name?" Walter nodded, tears in his eyes. "I believe so. I believe you are my daughter." Audrey didn't know what to feel. Part of her desperately wanted to believe. The possibility of having a father, of belonging to someone, of finally having answers. But another part was afraid. What if it was a mistake? What if it was a cruel coincidence? "How can we be sure?" she asked. "A DNA test," Walter replied. "It's the only way we can know for sure." Audrey looked at him for a long moment. She saw sincerity in his eyes, saw the same hope mixed with fear that she herself felt. "All right," she finally said. "Let's do the test." 3 days later, Audrey moved into the Harrison mansion. It was a surreal transition, from a tiny room in the boarding house to a suite larger than Mrs. Peterson's entire apartment. She had her own bathroom, walk-in closet, and even a balcony overlooking the garden. Walter insisted she choose any room she wanted, but Audrey deliberately avoided the pink room that had been little Gia's. She wasn't ready for that yet. The house was impressive but also intimidating. It had 2 floors, 6 bedrooms, a library, a screening room, a gym, and a pool in the backyard. The staff included a housekeeper, 2 maids, a gardener, and a driver. They were all introduced to Audrey as Mr. Harrison's daughter, and she could see the thinly veiled curiosity in their eyes. The first few days were a mixture of wonder and discomfort. Audrey didn't know how to act, what clothes to wear, how to talk to the staff. Walter was patient, explaining everything, never pressuring her. He had hired a personal shopper to help her build a new wardrobe, but Audrey insisted on keeping some of her old clothes, including the worn sneakers she used for selling flowers. They were her connection to who she had been, and she didn't want to lose that completely. On the fourth day during dinner, Walter mentioned something that took her by surprise. "I need to tell you about the family company," he said, cutting his steak, "and about your Uncle Robert." Audrey looked up from her plate. "Uncle?" Walter nodded. "Robert is my younger brother. He works at the company. He's the vice president. You'll meet him soon." "Why do you say his name like that?" Audrey asked, noticing the subtle tension in Walter's tone. Walter sighed. "Robert and I have always had a complicated relationship. When our father passed away, he left the company to me because I was the eldest. Robert never took that well. He thinks he should have more control, more decision-making power. And now that I'm back," Audrey said slowly, understanding, "I changed the game even more." "Exactly. You are my rightful heir. That means eventually, when I retire or when I'm no longer here, you will inherit the majority of the company. Robert won't be happy about that." Audrey frowned. "But I don't know anything about business. I haven't studied. I have no experience." "You'll learn," Walter said confidently, "and it doesn't have to be immediate. But Robert needs to know about your existence. I'm going to invite him to dinner this weekend. I want you two to meet." Audrey spent the following days increasingly nervous about the prospect of meeting her uncle. Walter tried to reassure her, but she could feel that he was also apprehensive. On Saturday night, Robert Harrison arrived promptly at 8. Audrey watched him from the living room window. He was a few years younger than Walter, perhaps in his early 40s. He wore an expensive, perfectly cut suit, dark hair slicked back, and had an air of self-confidence that bordered on arrogance. His smile was charming but didn't reach his eyes. "Walter," Robert said as he entered, giving his brother a mechanical hug. "Thanks for the invitation. It's been a while since we had dinner together. I have something important to tell you," Walter replied, guiding him to the living room where Audrey was waiting. Robert stopped when he saw her. His eyes scanned her up and down in a cold, calculating assessment that made Audrey feel exposed. "And who is this charming young woman?" Robert asked with a smile that didn't match his tone. "Robert, this is Audrey, my daughter Gia." Robert's smile froze. "Excuse me, I don't think I heard you correctly." "Did you say daughter?" Walter stood close to Audrey, a subtle gesture of protection. "Yes, Audrey is Gia. She survived the accident 20 years ago. We did a DNA test. It's confirmed." The silence that followed was heavy. Robert looked from Walter to Audrey and back to Walter. His expression had changed from charming to completely closed off. "This is absolutely ridiculous," he finally said. "After 20 years, a girl suddenly appears with a convenient story, and you just believe it." "Walter, you're being manipulated." "I have proof," Walter said calmly. "The DNA test is conclusive. The ring she wears belonged to Gia. The dates of the accident coincide. She was found in the same place that night." Audrey felt the anger rise. "I'm not manipulating anyone. I didn't even know he existed until a few weeks ago." Robert ignored her completely, focusing on Walter. "Do you understand what this means? If she really is your daughter, she becomes the primary heir. This completely changes the company structure." "I know," Walter replied, "and she is my daughter, Robert. This is not up for discussion. Let's have dinner," Robert said abruptly. "We need to talk about this more calmly." Dinner was tense. Robert asked Audrey questions, but they were disguised interrogations, not genuine attempts to get to know her. "Where exactly did you grow up? Who took care of you? How did you support yourself?" Every answer she gave was met with thinly veiled skepticism. Audrey tried to remain calm, but when Robert insinuated she might be a trained con artist, she lost her patience. "Enough," she said, standing up from the table. "I don't need to prove anything to you. The DNA test proves who I am. If you have a problem with that, that's your problem, not mine." Robert glared at her with cold eyes. "Be careful, girl. You might have fooled my brother, but you don't fool me. I will find out the truth about you." Walter slammed his hand on the table. "Robert, respect my daughter. If you can't do that, you can leave." Robert stood up, throwing his napkin onto his plate. "You're making a mistake, Walter, and when you find out, it'll be too late." He left without saying goodbye. Audrey and Walter remained in the dining room in silence. "I'm sorry," Walter finally said. I didn't expect him to react so badly. He's afraid, Audrey observed. Afraid of losing power, money, control. Walter nodded sadly. Yes, and men who are afraid can be dangerous. In the following days, Audrey tried to focus on adapting to her new life. Walter enrolled her in a business administration course so she could eventually participate in the family company. He also hired a private tutor to help her with knowledge she had missed out on due to an irregular education, but something bothered her. She couldn't stop thinking about the accident, the way her mother had died and how she had been separated from Walter. One night, while Walter was working in his study, Audrey went downstairs and knocked on the door. "Can I come in?" "Of course, always," Walter said, gesturing to a chair. Audrey sat down, nervous. "I wanted to ask more about the accident. You said another vehicle forced my mother's car off the road. Did the police investigate that?" Walter frowned. "They did, yes, but they never found the other car. There were no witnesses either. The road was secondary and deserted at that hour. Do you think it was just an accident, or could it have been intentional?" Walter stared at her, surprised by the question. "I thought about that at the time," he admitted, "but I couldn't find a motive. Who would want to harm Joanna? She was a beloved teacher. She had no enemies." "And you," Audrey pressed, "did you have enemies? Business enemies?" Walter hesitated. "There's always competition in the corporate world, but nothing that would justify something so extreme. Why are you asking this?" Audrey wasn't sure. It was just a gut feeling, an unease she couldn't name. "I don't know. It just seems strange to me. The other car forcing you off the road, me disappearing without a trace. It seems too convenient." Walter grew thoughtful. "I never looked at it from that angle before. I was so devastated by the loss that I accepted the police's conclusions. Maybe we should investigate again. I want to know what really happened," Audrey said firmly. "I need to know." "I'll call Frank tomorrow," Walter promised. "If there's something to discover, he'll find it." That night, Audrey couldn't sleep. She stayed on her room's balcony, looking at the stars. For the first time since she discovered who she really was, she allowed herself to think about Joanna, the mother she couldn't remember. She tried to imagine her face, her voice, her touch. All she had were Walter's stories and a few photographs. But she felt something deep, a connection that transcended memory. Meanwhile, across the city, Robert Harrison was in his luxurious apartment, drinking whiskey and looking at the city view. His mind was working frantically. Audrey was a threat, a real threat to his future, to his power. He had worked for years to position himself as Walter's natural successor. And now suddenly, a girl who sold flowers on the streets was presented as the heir. No, he wouldn't accept this. There had to be a way to discredit her, to prove she was a fraud. Or if she really was Gia, he had to find a way to neutralize the threat she represented. He picked up the phone and dialed a number. "I need you to investigate someone for me," he said when the call was answered. "Audrey Miller. I want to know everything about her. Everything, and I don't care about the methods you use." At the Harrison mansion, while Audrey finally fell asleep, she had no idea of the storm that was approaching. She didn't imagine that the questions she had asked about the accident had shed light on secrets that some people would prefer to keep buried forever. The morning began with urgency. Frank left early to arrange protection for Leo Davis, taking him to a discreet hotel in another city where Robert couldn't easily find him. Walter contacted his trusted attorney, Mr. Marshall, a 60-year-old man with an impeccable reputation and vast experience in complex cases. Audrey, meanwhile, couldn't sit still. She paced the mansion, processing the revelation from the night before. Her uncle, the man who had received her with such coldness, was responsible for everything that had happened. For the first time, she felt true hatred. Mr. Marshall arrived at the mansion mid-morning. He sat with Walter and Audrey in the library, listening carefully as Walter recounted all the discoveries. "It's a serious case," the attorney said when Walter finished, "but we'll need more than the testimony of a single man, especially one with a criminal record. Robert will claim that Leo is lying to gain immunity or money. We need documentary evidence." "Bank records," Frank said, entering the room. "I need to access Robert's accounts from 2002, see if there are suspicious transfers in the weeks before and after the accident." Walter hesitated. "That will require a court order, and Robert will be alerted as soon as we request it." "Not necessarily," Mr. Marshall said thoughtfully. If we can demonstrate probable cause for investigating a serious crime, I can request judicial secrecy. The judge can issue the order without Robert being immediately notified. But we need to be quick. How long does he have to comply with the order before Robert finds out? 72 hours, maybe less if Robert has informants. So we have 3 days to gather everything we need, Audrey said with determination. Let's start. Frank left to coordinate with forensic specialists who could analyze the records as soon as they were obtained. Mr. Marshall went to prepare the petition for the judge. Walter and Audrey remained, surrounded by the weight of what they were about to do. Are you sure about this? Walter asked his daughter. Once we start, there's no going back. Robert is my brother, but he's also dangerous. This could put you at risk. Audrey looked him in the eye. He took my mother from me. He tried to make me disappear. He made you suffer for 20 years. I won't back down now out of fear. I want justice. Walter hugged his daughter tightly. Your mother would be so proud of you. You have her courage. Meanwhile, at the Harrison Company office, Robert was restless. He had spent the night trying to find out what Frank Carter had discovered. He called his contacts, paid for information, but all he got were fragments. Frank had gone upstate. He had talked to someone. He had returned directly to Walter's mansion in the middle of the night. Robert knew he was being investigated. The question was how much they had discovered and how much time he had to act. He called a private attorney, not the company's lawyer, but someone specialized in sensitive criminal cases. I need you to investigate a possible legal action against me, Robert said. I want to know if there are movements in the courts, requests for court orders, anything related to my name or my finances. The attorney promised to investigate and get back with information in 24 hours, but Robert knew he might not have that much time. He needed a contingency plan. That afternoon, Mr. Marshall secured the court order. A judge, convinced by the seriousness of the accusations and the quality of the preliminary evidence, issued an order for full access to Robert Harrison's bank records from 2001 to 2003. The banks had 48 hours to deliver the documents. Frank coordinated with financial analysis specialists. They needed to identify suspicious transfers, especially to Leo Davis or anyone else who might have been involved. The wait was agonizing. Walter tried to maintain his routine at the company, but he was distracted. He avoided meetings with Robert, claiming outside engagements. Robert noticed and grew even more suspicious. Audrey used the time to learn more about her mother. Walter had saved everything. Joanna's diaries, her paintings, photographs. Audrey spent hours reading her mother's words, getting to know the woman she had been. In one of the diaries, dated just 2 weeks before the accident, Audrey found something that made her stop. Entry May 2002. I'm worried about something I discovered in the company's books. There are discrepancies in the financial reports Robert is presenting. I confronted him today and he reacted very badly. He said I didn't understand business and should worry about my art classes. But I know what I saw. Money is being embezzled. I need to talk to Walter about this, but he's so busy with the merger negotiations. I don't want to worry him without being sure. I'm going to investigate further. Audrey called Walter immediately. He read the entry and turned pale. Joanna had discovered something. She was investigating Robert. This changes everything, Walter said. It wasn't just about the merger and control of the company. Robert had an additional motive. Joanna could expose him, ruin his reputation, possibly even incriminate him for embezzlement. He eliminated her to protect himself, Audrey completed, feeling nauseous. And I was just a child in the way. Walter hugged his daughter, both grappling with the magnitude of Robert's malice. At that moment, Frank called. The records arrived. I'm with the forensic team analyzing them now. 3 hours later, Frank returned with a thick folder full of marked and highlighted documents. We found it, he said, placing the papers on the table. 3 transfers from Robert's accounts to an account in the name of Leo Davis. The first 15 days before the accident for $20,000. The second 2 days before the accident, $10,000. And the third 1 week after the accident, $50,000. Walter looked at the numbers. $50,000 after the accident. The final payment. Exactly, Frank confirmed. And there's more. There's another series of transfers to an account in the name of Paul Jones. I researched and He's a former security guard known for shady work. He's registered as having worked for Robert at that time. Paul Jones, Walter repeated. I've never heard that name. Frank opened another document. He was discreet, but there are phone calls registered between Robert and Paul on the night of the accident and in the following days. Dozens of them. Audrey was processing everything, so there were other people involved besides Leo. Robert had a network. We need to find this Paul Jones, she said. I'm on it, Frank assured. But there's a problem. Paul disappeared 15 years ago. No one knows where he is. He might be using another name. He might have left the country. Or he might no longer be alive. Robert might have gotten rid of him to eliminate witnesses, Walter said somberly. It's possible, Frank agreed. But I'll keep looking. Meanwhile, we have enough evidence. Leo, the bank records, Joanna's diary. It's a strong case. Mr. Marshall, who had remained silent analyzing the documents, finally spoke. It's strong, but we will face fierce resistance. Robert will hire the best lawyers. He will claim the transfers were legitimate, that Leo is lying, that the diary is just Joanna's assumptions. We have to be prepared for a long battle. How long until we can go to the police? Walter asked. We can go tomorrow, the attorney replied. But I suggest we confront Robert first. Give him a chance to surrender, to confess. If he cooperates, the process can be faster and less painful for everyone. Audrey didn't like the idea. Why would we give him that chance? Because strategically it's better, Mr. Marshall explained patiently. If he confesses, we have a closed case. If he fights, this could drag on for years. And furthermore, it's more dignified. Walter has the right to confront his brother face to face. Walter nodded slowly. He's right, Audrey. I need to do this. I need to look Robert in the eye and ask him why. Why he did this to Joanna, to you, to me. Audrey reluctantly agreed. But I have one condition. I will be there. I want to see his face when he's confronted with the truth. Agreed, Walter said. They scheduled the meeting for the next morning, in Walter's private office at the company. Frank ensured they would have discreet security guards positioned in case Robert reacted badly. Mr. Marshall prepared all the documents organized in folders. The trap was set. That night, Robert Harrison received a message from his brother. Important meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. My office. It's about the company and the future. Please attend. Robert read the message 3 times. His instinct told him something was wrong, but he couldn't refuse. Not attending would be admitting fear, admitting guilt, and Robert Harrison had never admitted anything in his life. All right, he replied. I'll be there. While the city slept, 4 people remained awake. Walter, mentally rehearsing what he would say to his brother, dealing with the betrayal and the anger. Audrey, rehearsing how she would control her emotions when she saw the man who had destroyed her family. Frank checking and rechecking every detail of the case, ensuring there were no loopholes. And Robert, planning his defense, confident that no matter what Walter had discovered, he would get away unscathed. He always did. But this time Robert was wrong. For the first time in his life, the consequences of his actions were about to catch up with him. And there would be no escape. The morning dawned cloudy over New York. Walter arrived at the office at 7, 2 hours before the scheduled meeting. He needed the time to mentally prepare to confront his brother. Audrey was with him, pale but determined. They had spent the night almost sleepless. Frank arrived half an hour later, bringing the folders with all the evidence perfectly organized. Mr. Marshall was the last to arrive, his presence adding legal weight to the meeting. I've positioned 2 discreet security guards in the hallway, Frank informed them. If Robert tries anything, they'll come in immediately. We hope it won't be necessary, Mr. Marshall said, but it's good to be prepared. At 9 sharp, Walter's secretary announced Robert's arrival. He walked into the office with his usual confidence, wearing a perfectly tailored gray suit. His smile faltered when he saw Audrey, Frank, and the attorney present. I didn't know this would be such a formal meeting, Robert said, his voice slightly strained. Sit down, Robert, Walter said, indicating an isolated chair in front of the desk. The others were positioned around, creating a semicircle that made Robert look isolated. He sat, but his posture was rigid, defensive. What is this about exactly? Walter looked at his brother, trying to find some trace of the boy who had grown up beside him. But all he saw was a stranger, someone capable of unimaginable acts. We're going to talk about June 2002, Walter began, specifically about the night of June 23rd. Robert did not visibly react, but Audrey noticed his fingers lightly gripping the arms of the chair. "I don't understand. What about that night?" "It was the night Joanna and Gia died," Walter said, and his voice cracked slightly on the last word. "Or at least, that's what I thought." Robert maintained a neutral expression. "It was a terrible tragedy. We all mourned. But why are we talking about this now after so much time?" "Because we discovered the truth," Audrey said, her voice sharp as a blade. "We discovered what you did." Robert finally looked directly at her, and there was something cold in his eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about." Frank opened the first folder. "Let me refresh your memory. Leo Davis, do you remember him?" Robert's mask began to crack. His jaw tensed. "I've never heard that name." "Are you sure?" Frank continued, pulling out bank statements. "Because your records show 3 transfers to him. $20,000 on June 8, 2002, $10,000 on June 21st, and $50,000 on June 30th. Robert looked at the documents but didn't pick them up. "I make a lot of transactions. I don't remember everyone." "Leo remembers you very well," Frank said. "In fact, he's under protection now, ready to testify. He told us everything. How you hired him to force Joanna's car off the road. How you changed the plan at the last minute, instructing him to do it on the specific night when she would be with Gia. How you promised you would take care of the child if she survived." Robert's face turned red. "This is ridiculous. The word of a criminal against mine. He's obviously lying to get a deal." Mr. Marshall spoke up for the first time. "Normally, I would agree, but there's more." He placed copies of the phone records on the table. "Here are the records of all calls between you and Leo in the weeks before and after the accident. Hard to deny contact when there is official documentation. And there's this," Audrey said, picking up her mother's diary. She opened it to the marked page and read aloud. "I'm worried about something I discovered in the company's books. There are discrepancies in the financial reports Robert is presenting." Her voice broke slightly, but she continued. "I confronted him today and he reacted very badly. He said I didn't understand business, but I know what I saw. Money is being embezzled." "She knew, Robert," Audrey said, tears of anger in her eyes. "My mother knew you were stealing from the company. She was going to tell Walter. So you eliminated her." Robert ignored her completely, focusing on Walter. "This is a sham. You're fabricating evidence, manipulating documents." "Sit down," Walter ordered, and there was an authority in his voice that made Robert hesitate. "We have a witness. We have documentary evidence. We have Joanna's diary written in her own hand. We have the bank records provided by the banks themselves under court order. What do you have?" Silence. Robert looked around the office like a cornered animal. His mind was working frantically, searching for a way out. "You can't prove anything," he finally said, but the confidence had vanished from his voice. "Leo is a criminal. The diary is just suspicions. The transfers could be for anything. And there's Paul Jones," Frank added, observing Robert's reaction. "We saw the calls between you two. The transfers to him. We know he was involved." Robert's face paled. "Where is he?" "Good question," Frank said. "Paul disappeared 15 years ago. Very convenient for you. You eliminated your witnesses, didn't you? Unlike Leo, who was lucky enough to escape before you could silence him too." "Stop it," Robert yelled. "You have nothing that will hold up in court." "Maybe," Mr. Marshall said calmly. "Or maybe we have enough. But there is a way to resolve this that is better for everyone. You confess. You tell the whole truth. In exchange, we can negotiate terms with the prosecutor." Robert laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Confess? Do you think I'm an idiot? I won't confess to something I didn't do." Walter stood up, placing his hands on the desk. "Look at me, Robert. I'm your brother. We grew up together. I always tried to protect you. I always gave you space in the company even when Dad wanted to leave you out. And you did this. You killed my wife. You tried to kill my daughter. You made me live 20 years in hell thinking I had lost everything. Why? Because of money? Because of power?" Robert met Walter's eyes, and for a brief moment, his mask completely dropped. There was hatred there, resentment accumulated over decades. "You always had everything," Robert spat the words out. "Dad's love, control of the company, the perfect family. While I was always the second, always in your shadow. Joanna was about to ruin everything I had built. Yes, I was embezzling money. It was my right. I worked as hard as you but received scraps. The merger was my chance to finally get what I deserved. So you killed her, Audrey said, her voice cracking. You took my mother because she discovered your theft. Robert looked at her, and there was no remorse in his expression. It was necessary. She was going to tell everything. She was going to destroy me. And what about me, Audrey asked, tears streaming down her face. I was a 5-year-old child. Why try to make me disappear? You were the heir, Robert said with indifference. With you out of the way, I would have permanent control. I would be next in the line of succession. The room fell into absolute silence. The confession had just come out, clear and unambiguous. Mr. Marshall discreetly showed the digital recorder that had been recording everything. Robert realized too late what he had done. He had confessed in front of witnesses on tape. His arrogance and anger had made him commit the final mistake. You're finished, Walter said, his voice heavy with pain and disappointment. Frank was already on the phone with the police. Mr. Marshall carefully put away the recorder, ensuring the confession was secure. Robert looked around, finally understanding the magnitude of what he had done. He tried to leave, but the security guards blocked the door. You can't do this, he said, but his voice was empty. I'm a Harrison. I have rights. Joanna had rights, Audrey said, her voice firm despite the tears. I had a right to a mother, to grow up with my family. You took all that from us. Now you will pay. The police arrived 20 minutes later. Robert was formally arrested for murder, attempted kidnapping and various other crimes. As he was led away in handcuffs, he shouted threats, promised his lawyers would fix everything, that he would be back. But everyone knew it was a lie. With the recorded confession and all the evidence, Robert Harrison had nowhere to run. When the office was finally empty except for Walter, Audrey and Frank, the silence was heavy. It's over, Frank said softly. It's done. Walter sat down heavily in his chair, looking like he had aged years in one morning. My brother. My own brother. Audrey went to him and took his hand. He's not your brother anymore. A real brother would never have done this. Walter looked at his daughter, and despite all the pain, felt gratitude. He had lost so much, but he had recovered Gia. His daughter was there, strong and courageous, seeking justice for the mother she barely remembered. Your mother would be so proud of you, he said, pulling her into a hug. Audrey finally let the tears fall freely. They were tears of pain for what she had lost, but also of relief. The truth had finally come out. Her mother would be remembered not as a victim of an accident, but as a brave woman who had discovered the truth and paid the ultimate price for it. And Robert would pay for his crimes. Justice was being served. In the following weeks, the case dominated the headlines. The businessman Robert Harrison indicted for murder. The story of Audrey, the lost heir who returned to expose the truth. The entire city followed every development. Leo Davis testified formally, his detailed confession officially recorded. The bank records were presented. Joanna's diary was accepted as evidence, and the recording of Robert's confession was the final piece. His team of lawyers tried to claim the confession had been obtained under duress, but the security footage from the office clearly showed there were no threats or intimidation. Robert had confessed voluntarily, defeated by his own arrogance and anger. The trial was quick. With so much evidence, there wasn't much the defense could do. Robert Harrison was found guilty of all charges. The sentence was read in a packed courtroom. Walter and Audrey were there, side by side, as the judge pronounced the words that changed everything. Robert Harrison, you have been found guilty of aggravated murder, attempted kidnapping, and multiple counts of corporate fraud. Your punishment is 30 years in prison, without possibility of parole for the first 15. When Robert was led out of the courtroom, he didn't look at Walter or Audrey. His head was bowed, the reality of his situation finally penetrating his arrogance. It's over, Audrey whispered. Walter squeezed her hand. Yes, it's finally over. 6 months after the trial, life had found a new rhythm at the Harrison mansion. Audrey's mornings now began very differently from when she sold flowers on the streets. She woke up in her spacious room, had breakfast with Walter on the balcony overlooking the garden, and then they headed to the company together. Walter had insisted she start learning the family business gradually, without pressure. Audrey attended business administration courses in the morning and worked alongside her father in the afternoon, absorbing every detail of how the company functioned. Surprisingly, she discovered she had a talent for it. Her life experience on the streets, having to negotiate, read people, and solve problems quickly, translated well to the business world. Walter often commented that she had Joanna's sharp intelligence and his own determination, the perfect combination. The company had also changed. With Robert gone, Walter implemented full audits and new financial control systems. They discovered that the embezzlement had been even greater than they imagined, lasting for years. But with the reforms, the company was stronger and more transparent than ever. One day, during lunch at a restaurant near the office, Audrey brought up a topic she had been thinking about for weeks. "Dad, I want to do something for my mother, something to honor her memory." Walter put down his fork, giving her his full attention. "What do you have in mind?" Audrey took a deep breath. "I want to create a foundation, something that helps orphan children, especially those separated from their families in traumatic circumstances. I want other children to have better opportunities than I had. Education, psychological support, vocational training. And I want to call it the Joanna Harrison Foundation." Walter felt tears in his eyes. "That's a beautiful idea. Your mother always cared about the less fortunate. She would be honored." In the following months, they worked on the project together. Walter provided the seed capital and his connections in the business world. Audrey used her personal experience to shape the programs. She knew exactly what children in orphanages needed because she had lived that reality. The foundation's headquarters was established in a renovated building in downtown Manhattan. They hired psychologists, educators, and social workers. They created mentorship programs, scholarships, and even a small art center, inspired by Joanna's love for art. On the opening day, there was a crowd: corporate partners, government representatives, children from local orphanages, and of course Mrs. Peterson, whom Audrey had invited as a tribute to the woman who had been her family when she had no one. Audrey stepped onto the stage to deliver the opening speech. Her heart was pounding, but she was prepared. "Good morning, everyone. My name is Audrey Harrison, formerly known as Audrey Miller. A year ago, I was selling flowers on the streets of New York to survive. I grew up in an orphanage, not knowing who my parents were or where I came from. Life was hard, but I had something many don't. I had hope." She paused, looking at the audience. "My mother, Joanna Harrison, was an art teacher. She believed in the beauty, creativity, and potential of every person. Although I didn't have the chance to consciously know her, I carry her legacy in my heart. This foundation exists to honor her memory and to ensure that children like me have not only hope, but real opportunities. Quality education, emotional support, and pathways to a better future." The applause was deafening. Walter, watching from the side of the stage, had never felt so proud. In the months that followed, the Joanna Harrison Foundation grew rapidly. Audrey was personally involved, regularly visiting partner orphanages, talking to the children, being living proof that it was possible to overcome the most difficult circumstances. One afternoon, she was at the Foundation's art center when a small girl, about 6 years old, timidly approached. "Were you really an orphan?" the girl asked. Audrey knelt down to her level. "Yes, I was. I grew up not knowing my parents, just like you." "And were you sad?" "Very sad sometimes," Audrey admitted. "But do you know what I learned? That our history doesn't define who we are. We define ourselves. You can be anything you want to be." The girl smiled and hugged Audrey before running back to her painting class. That simple hug made it all worthwhile. On a quiet evening, Walter and Audrey were having dinner at home. The table was set on the balcony, with candles lit and a beautiful view of the illuminated garden. "Do you regret it?" Walter suddenly asked. "Regret looking for me? Regret all the suffering that discovering the truth brought?" Audrey thought carefully before answering. "No, because now I know who I am. I know where I came from, and I have the chance to make a difference in other people's lives. Besides, I found you. I found my dad." Walter reached across the table and took her hand. "You saved me, you know. After losing Joanna and you, I spent 20 years just surviving, not living. I built a huge company, but my life was empty. You filled that void. You gave me purpose again." They clinked glasses, celebrating not only what they had found, but also honoring what they had lost. In that moment, Audrey felt a peace she didn't know was possible. On weekends, Audrey maintained a special habit. She visited the cemetery where Joanna was buried. Walter had renovated the grave, turning it into a small memorial with a garden of flowers around it. Audrey always brought fresh roses, a connection to her old job and her mother's love for flowers. She would sit there and talk, telling her about the foundation, about work, about how she was feeling. "Hi, Mom. I brought your favorite flowers today, white roses. The foundation is doing so well. We helped 50 more children this month. I'm trying to make you proud." She would pause, as if waiting for a response. "Dad is doing well too. He finally really smiles now. I think finding me helped him find peace. We're both trying to honor your memory in the best way possible. You would do this, wouldn't you? If you were here, you would fight for justice, help those in need. I hope I'm on the right track." The wind blew softly, making the rose petals dance. Audrey chose to believe it was her mother responding, saying yes, that she was proud. 1 year after the trial, there was a small ceremony at the company. Walter was officially retiring as CEO. Not completely, he would still be chairman of the board, but the day-to-day operations would be led by a new CEO he had recruited, an experienced and trusted executive. But he made a point of announcing something else. Audrey Harrison will be the Vice President of Social Impact and Innovation. She will lead not only the foundation, but also the company's social responsibility initiatives. And when she's ready in a few years, she will take on positions of even greater responsibility. Audrey didn't want to be CEO, at least not yet, maybe never. But she wanted to make a difference. And in this new position, she could do exactly that. In the evening, they celebrated at home. Mrs. Peterson was there, now a regular presence in their lives. Frank, too, who had become a close family friend. Mr. Marshall stopped by quickly to offer congratulations. It was a small celebration, but full of love and meaning. Audrey looked around the room, seeing her father laughing at one of Frank's jokes, Mrs. Peterson serving coffee to everyone as she always did, and felt gratitude. Her life had completely changed, from a flower vendor on the streets to the heir of an empire. But more important than the money or the status, she had found family. She had found purpose. She had found justice for her mother. Before going to sleep, Audrey went to the room that had been little Gia's. Walter had asked if she wanted to change the decor, but she preferred to keep it as it was. It was a connection to who she had been, the girl who had lost everything but who in a way survived. She picked up a framed photo on the dresser. It was Joanna and Gia together, mother and daughter smiling at the camera. Audrey traced the outline of her mother's face with her finger. "We did it, Mom," she whispered. "We got justice. Robert will pay for what he did. And I found Dad. I found my place. I'm making a difference. I hope you're proud." She put the photo back and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere up there, she liked to think Joanna was watching, and she was smiling. The journey had been long and painful. It had involved 20 years of separation, pain, injustice. But it had also involved hope, determination, and love. And in the end, love had won. Walter appeared at the door. "Are you okay?" Audrey turned and smiled. "I am, Dad. I'm finally okay." They hugged. Father and daughter reunited against all odds. Outside, the city of New York continued its frantic pace. But inside the Harrison mansion, there was peace. There was family. There was a future. And as Audrey fell asleep that night, for the first time in her adult life, she felt complete. Not because she had wealth or status, but because she knew who she was. She was Gia Harrison. She was Joanna and Walter's daughter. She was a survivor. She was a fighter. She was someone who would make a difference in the world. And that was a story worth telling. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Walter and Audrey has touched your hearts. A journey of loss, reunion, and justice that reminds us that the truth always prevails and that family love can overcome even the greatest adversities. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to follow more inspiring narratives like this. Leave a like if the story of the Joanna Harrison Foundation and Audrey's fight for justice motivated you. And in the comments, we'd love to hear your opinions. Do you believe finding family can heal the deepest wounds? Have you experienced anything similar? Share your stories with us. Every day we bring you narratives that explore the complexity of life, the power of love, and the strength of human determination. For more stories that will move and inspire you, click on the special playlist we've prepared, right here next to this video. Don't miss our next content. Until the next story, and remember, just like Audrey, we all have the strength to overcome our challenges and build a better future. End of story.